Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today's video, I'm going to be talking about allegory and satire in Animal Farm. Now, like we've discussed in the past, Animal Farm, while sure on paper, we're talking about pigs, we're talking about animals and how they partake in a farm environment. Ultimately, though, you know that this is a bigger picture. Orwell's critiquing something. He's looking beyond animals and analyzing more of political structures. Now, how he does this is he uses an allegory as well as satire in order to effectively communicate what he's trying to express. Now, an allegory uses literary devices to unveil hidden meanings. Some of the literary devices in Animal Farm that we see are symbolism and satire. Symbolism is used by the characters, for example, the characters' names and the commandments that we see. Now, some of the characters, who they represent, Mr. Jones is Nicholas II, who is an ineffective and incompetent leader in Soviet Russia. Old Major, he acts as Karl Marx or Lenin. Lenin revolutionized or brought about the ideology of communist Russia. Karl Marx, well, you've already seen the previous video on what he did with the Communist Manifesto. Now, Old Major offers communist ideology to the farm and is the backbone to this entire framework. His ideologies are inherently good. He means well for the farm and for all the animals that live in it. Snowball is symbolic for Trotsky, who is ultimately blamed and used as a scapegoat throughout the failures of the farm. Much like how we saw Stalin blame many of his issues, Stalin blame many of his issues on Trotsky for Soviet Russia. Anytime something would come up, or anytime that Stalin would do something wrong, he would use Trotsky and blame him in order to deflect responsibility on there, have the public focusing on Trotsky, and ultimately carry out his tyrannic methods and carry out these horrible actions against society. Now, Napoleon is Stalin, of course, who is a tyrant and ultimately uses communist ideology to manipulate society. He abuses his power and creates a worse society than what was there before. Moving on from symbolism, we see satire. Satire is a literary device that ridicules something in society and forces people to change their opinion on it. In this case, Orwell is challenging us, his reader, to critique communism, but more importantly, to focus on totalitarian power. We talked a little bit about totalitarian power and how it is a government which controls all in a society. He suggests that this is bad, and the reason how he does this is he uses animals in order to emphasize animalistic instincts, that no matter who you are, we all have these animalistic instincts. Now, deep down, we all truly are animals. Now, while we might think that being human offers us the ability to rationalize and be moral, carry out good deeds, we still have animalistic instincts that we are susceptible to. And ultimately, these instincts allow for us to be manipulated and greedy. We all have a level of greed inside of us. And what Orwell suggests is that even though we might have the right mindset going in, ultimately this greed will get to us and we will manipulate our power. Any human being will. Now, no totalitarian government can allow for a free society because greed ultimately takes us over. So no government can have complete control, Orwell suggests, without ultimately manipulating the entire society and abusing their power. Keep in mind, Orwell initially supported the idea of communism, all right, as a socialist, but wrote this story to expose the potential dangers and to warn the rest of us of Stalinism and totalitarian powers. We saw it with Hitler, we saw it with Stalin. Orwell was a zeitgeist. He was a man ahead of his time. And ultimately, through these videos, we've been able to see and focus on how Orwell was really right in the long run.